Hi, my name is Ky'le Cole, and today I will be presenting my research from the Motherline Latin American directors portraying powerful women. The three films that I have chosen to analyze are Pan's Labyrinth, directed by Guillermo del Toro in 2006, The Milk of Sorrow, directed by Claudia Llosa in 2009, and Wiña Pacha, directed by Oscar Catacora in 2017. So it's important to understand what is the motherline. The motherline is this idea, this concept coined by Naomi Lewinsky in her PhD that highlights the maternal figures and the matriarchal lineage and how it affects and shapes our lives and the values that we hold throughout our lives in helping to become the people and the beings that we are, both male and female. And the three figures within the mother line that I choose to highlight is the mother, the maiden, and the crone. Ophelia. Ophelia is the main character in Pan's Labyrinth, and her story takes place during the Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1939. And in her story, she is presented as a very inquisitive, very smart, very charismatic little girl. She loves to read, and in the beginning of her life, she's encouraged to do that by her mother. And in the story, you can see that she has a very strong bond, maternal bond with her mother, and that love for her, that fierce, intense love, is present throughout the entire movie. In the movie, she meets her new stepfather, El Capitan. He is the captain, the director, if you will, of Franco, the dictator at the time's army. He is the embodiment of patriarchal values. He's very authoritative, very fascist, very dictatorial, and he projects that onto Ophelia's mother, and Ophelia's mother becomes a victim to patriarchy. She is pregnant during the movie, so she's and she's sick. So she is basically told she has to walk around, she has to ride around in a wheelchair, and towards the end, she's bedridden through the movie. Fortunately, despite that, and despite Ophelia's mother's lack of engagement with Ophelia throughout the story, and because she cannot be there, Ophelia meets Mercedes. Mercedes is a housekeeper within El Capitan's household, and she is a supporter of the guerrilla fighters within the war. And she gives them supplies, medicine, anything that they need to continue to fight. She too, unfortunately, is a participant within the patriarchy, the patriarchal values of war, of hurting and killing others. Those things that tie us down and limit us to the freedoms of what it can mean to be at peace with ourselves, with the people around us, and with the systems in which, govern our lives. But despite that, both of those women show her what love is. Both of those women show her what it means to sacrifice for the things that you value. And throughout her stories with the alternative world, finding out that she is the princess of an ancient kingdom, she is the Princess Moana, and coping with that through the imaginary world, she is given the tools that she needs to continue to be strong. In the end, her mother does give birth to a son, and she has to run. She runs away with her little brother, and in the end, she is given a choice. The fawn from the alternative world tells her that if she wants to join her father in the alternative kingdom, she must kill her son. She must kill her brother, excuse me. And her stepfather, El Capitan, tells her to give him the son, or he will kill her. She chooses neither of those things, and she dies as a consequence. Her stepfather shoots her, and she ends up dying. But what's really powerful about this is that in the story, she is presented with a dichotomy. To kill her son, her little brother, excuse me, or to die protecting him. And she dies protecting him, and she chooses not to give him up to either of those patriarchal systems between the war and her stepfather. And in that, she learns the power of love, the power of sacrifice. And she was only able to learn those tools, to learn those values through the maternal figures, through those powerful matriarchal figures within her life that showed her that yes, they are victim to the patriarchy. Yes, they participate in the patriarchy, but there's so much more to gain from those values, so much more to gain from the things that they learned that they were able to pass on to Ofelia. Our next character is Fausta. Fausta is the main character in the story, The Milk of Sorrow, the film The Milk of Sorrow. And her story takes place in the beginning where her mother dies. And it's really important to highlight the relationship that they have. They have a very strong maternal bond, mother and daughter bond. She dies, her last words are her reiterating her rape, her mother reiterating her rape to Fausta. And it's very traumatic because the events that she's talking about are the armed conflict between the Shining Path and the Peruvian army in 1995. And it portrays how through that trauma, many women within Peru were scared to feed their children, their babies, because they felt that the breast milk that they were producing produced sorrow as well. And so they thought that they were passing on those traumas, passing on those narratives of the patriarchal systems of bodily violation and sexual assault. And through that, she not only passes that on through her milk, but she also passes that on through her stories. She believes that when she was pregnant with Fausta could see the rapes taking place, and that is in itself very traumatic. And Fausta throughout the movie has to process that. In the movie, she is basically trying to get her mother back to her body, back to her town. And that is a struggle, saving up the money to make the journey. And in the end, she is able to, but it's because of the fierce love that she had with her mother. Another thing to highlight is la papa, the potato. Her mother placed a potato, like a growing potato, within her daughter's vagina as a way to protect her from sexual assault, to protect her from relationships that she could have with men. And in the end, that does cripple her. It cripples her because in the film, she can't even walk past a man. There's no trust. There's no trust of men. There's no trust of actually forming healthy relationships, whether they be platonic or romantic, within the dynamics that she is presented with because of her mother's sexual trauma. In the end, she's able to overcome that as well as get her mother back to her village. But I think it really speaks to the relationship that she has with her mother and how that affected her. The drive to take care of her mother, the drive to get her mother back home is what motivated her to heal, is what motivated her to get better, to be able to have both romantic and platonic relationships with men, and to finally be herself in all facets of her being, both sexually and every day. The last character I chose to analyze is Foxy. Foxy is one of the main characters in the film Wiña Pacha. And Wiña Pacha is an homage, if you will, to the indigenous people within the Andes, within Peru. And in the story, I chose to analyze her through the crone lens, through the grandma lens. And in this story, and in her story, she is left by her son, but also more importantly, the thing that Oscar Catacora wanted to highlight was by the government. The government neglected her, the government neglected the indigenous people, and they have been left to figure it out. In the end, she loses everything. She loses her husband, she loses her llama, very traumatic when you're farming out in the Andes, and she continues to push forward. The last scene in the film, you can see her looking back, but in the end, she continues to push forward. And I think that speaks volumes about grandmothers. They're strong, they're firm in their believings, and they continue to push forward. And in the end, I think that that's really powerful when it comes to the Motherline. All of these characters had various issues and traumas throughout their lives that they had to navigate. But it was only through the motherline, only through the matriarchal lenses that they were able to overcome it. The fierce love that they had for themselves and for their mothers and for their grandmothers were they able to overcome. And I think that that is really important. And I hope that you enjoyed. And I hope you learned something. Thank you.